Hey geeks and geekettes, something different for you today. No unboxings. This is a review of the latest issues of The Walking Dead. Please be warned, spoiler alerts. Major spoiler alerts. If you've not read issue 191 and 192 and now 193, stop this video, go and read them, then come back. That's a spoiler alert. Okay, so giving you your warning about spoiler alert. These issues 191 and 192 especially, major spoiler alert. Right, that's me done. You've been warned. These two issues tell the story of the death of Rick Grimes, who's obviously the main protagonist from episode or comic 1 right up into today's release, which is the 3rd of July. I couldn't even think then. 3rd of July, issue 193. And again, spoiler alert, it's the last ever Walking Dead comic. There'll be no more written, no more released. Robert Kirkman, in the end of The Walking Dead 193, has left quite a large sort of goodbye to fans, thanks, and all the rest of it. So, where to start? 191 obviously continues with the new community that Rick and his family and friends have found. The community it's got its own government set up, but the way the comics are read, there's something lurking in the background. This scene sort of is the last big scene Rick gives, where he says the words, "We are not the Walking Dead." They've rebuilt the community, they've rebuilt for the future, and basically turns an ugly situation on its head. And through that, Governor Milton's son, a snivelling weasel if anything, shoots Rick when he's sleeping. Initially I was really angry that such a waste of space character beat Rick, but it makes sense because the governor, Negan, Alpha, Beta, they couldn't beat Rick in a physical fight. Rick beat everything that came at him. The only way he was going to die was somebody killing him in his sleep, and it was a coward that did it, and it was the only way Rick would go. And so after sort of calming down from the initial you've killed Rick by a coward's hands, I can see it. 192 obviously deals with the fallout, and it looks like it's going to become Carl's story, and The Walking Dead can continue on with Carl. It shows Carl, this issue, if anything, shows Carl and the man he's become, because he doesn't kill the guy that killed Rick. He lets him go to prison, and Carl does have a final say with the guy, and it's, you know, I'll watch you for the rest of your days, you'll never get out of this prison, and that's enough. So it shows Carl's arc. 193 I've read today, but I've read it digitally. I'm waiting for the hard copy to get delivered. By the look of it, it's already selling out everywhere. 193 time jumps majorly, bigger than any time jump we've had in the show or the comics. And basically, I'm guessing it's around 15 years. They don't tell you how long time has jumped. But Carl is a grown man. He's got a full beard. He's married. He's got a child. The child is called Andrea. Obviously, this is different to the TV show, because Andrea and Rick were together in the comics. He's named his child after Andrea, not his mother, Laurie. Fair. Nobody liked her anyway, so Laurie, yeah, that'll do. Basically, it's Carl's a grown man with his daughter who looks around 6 years of age, so this time jump is probably about 15 years, and it's a massive time jump. And it shows what's become of the world, and basically the zombie apocalypse, or the walker apocalypse, whatever you want to call it, it's almost at an end. The communities are safe, the communities are free, they live in with a government, with a court system. Carl does something in this episode which involves killing a walker, which almost lands him in prison because walkers are so rare now that basically he's destroyed somebody's property. That somebody is Maggie's son and Glenn Ree's son Herschel. And yeah, Carl nearly goes to prison for it. Michonne is now a senior judge. Maggie is the president. Maggie's pushing for Carl to be punished, and then Carl goes a step further and basically reminds everyone of how dangerous the times were and how they're all forgetting, and it's through forgetting what Rick did that basically the zombie apocalypse could start all over again and ruin what Rick died for. So obviously they built episode 192 up as if it was going to continue Carl's story, because Robert Kirkman had always said 300 issues, 300 issues, 300 issues, and we stopped randomly at 193. There was a leak online yesterday, and Robert Kirkman had told people to be careful not to look into the leaks. So I was thinking time jump, Negan coming back, and it was none of that. It was literally, we'll jump 15 years and we'll end there. While reading it, it seemed like a perfect ending to me. It was a happy ending. It wasn't an ending. Somebody's drilling outside. It wasn't an ending where it was all doom and gloom. Rick died, and Rick died under circumstances that made it possible for everyone in all of the communities to live without fear of the dead, without fear of the living even, because Negan was not a threat. The Whisperers, he'd beaten them, he'd beaten the governor, he'd beaten everyone that had gone up against him. And there's a trading community, and what Rick did has built a new world, and you could argue it's better than the world that they lost to the walkers. They built the world without armies, wars, and people were living on a more even keel. They were balanced, and when people started to rise and we've got more money than you, so we have better, Rick put a stop to it. That was almost his final act, was to say nobody was better than anyone else, we're all equal. And that continued. Carl's future, everyone is equal. There is a judge that we're aware of, a major judge, which is Michonne. There is a Prime Minister, Maggie, but everyone seemed happy and grown up. There were people from the comics. Eugene was an old man in this comic, in this final issue. He is a very old man. So yeah, to me it was the perfect ending. They got the happy ending. It wasn't the fans' happy ending because Rick isn't there. It didn't end with Rick. It's not the fans' happy ending because it hasn't continued with Carl. But it shows Carl as a man. Carl grown up and has lived and he survived, and his family. He's got his own family. He's got a daughter. He's got a wife. His wife isn't Lydia. Lydia's with somebody else that I can't remember for the life of me who it is now. But Carl has gone back to Sophia, and they've got a child together, which is right. Lydia was a cool character, but she was way too odd and out there and came from evil for Carl, for that to be Carl's future, so can't fault it. So the reason I've moved where I'm filming in the room is obviously my Walking Dead sort of stack of things is behind me, and it's what an ending. It really I know people are annoyed. I've seen comments online and people are like, I can't believe they've ended it, I can't believe they've jumped this far and they didn't let Carl live his story. And they did. They just didn't see the need to show it. They had Carl finish his story as an adult male with a family, living free of fear, and they didn't need to show it. They could have gone to issue 300 and they could have died and shown Carl growing to that point, but it would have been a retread of what Rick Grimes had done. Carl would have just continued doing what Rick Grimes has already done for us readers for the last over a decade. So for Carl, that time to go to Carl, and Carl will be happy, grown up, and remember where he came from. perfect ending for me. If I was going to give the final issue a mark out of 10, it would be 10. It was an extra long issue, and the write-up from Kirkman at the end thanking everyone, you could see he didn't take the decision lightly at all. It was clearly a hard decision for him to make, but he knew where he was going with the story, and I, for one, I'm grateful with the time and money I've invested into The Walking Dead. I mean, I've got a cabinet full of Walking Dead behind me. I've got DVDs, I've got comics, I've got variants of comics, and then I've bought the compendiums, and so I've got multiple issues, and I've gone to Walker Stalk. I've got the passes still hanging up behind me there. I've got my family involved in The Walking Dead. We all wear Walking Dead t-shirts, go to conventions. I've dressed up as Negan in 3 or 4 different conventions, and that was probably, it would have got a 9 out of 10, except for Negan lives. That's right. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, Negan survives. He becomes a peaceful old man, living in a house on his own away from everyone. He's got Lucille in a grave outside his home, and I think that's more a grave in memory to his wife than Lucille the Bat. The issues with him and the Grimes family seem to have been put to one side because Carl is going to visit him to see how he's doing. Negan doesn't show himself. We, the viewer or the reader, see Negan at the graveside tending to his wife's grave, and that's cool. And then Kirkman at the end says, by P.S., Negan lives, which, I mean, the guy who's my favourite character. I've Negan t-shirts, I've got Lucille the Bat behind me, I've got about 3 or 4 different Negan figures, and I'll have more. I'll have a lot more. I've obviously got the comic book figures loose on a shelf down the bottom there. You probably can't see it, but this video's dragging. I'm rambling. So, if I spoil this for anyone, you were warned at the start, and tough. It's just, I've never done a review of a comic book. I've never done a review of anything that I'm not physically holding in my hand that I can show you. But I read the comic today and I was so happy with the outcome. After the initial anger at 192, oh my god, you've killed Rick Grimes, and then we get the ending we wanted. Carl grew to be a happy man. Michonne grew to be a happy woman with a granddaughter and a daughter. Eugene was living happily as an old man. Negan was finally at peace and tending his wife's grave, not smashing people's skulls in with bats. Maggie was a prime minister. His son, though, wow, just what a wrong one. Basically, the reason Carl goes to court is he kills walkers that Herschel, or Herschel Jr. I suppose we should call him, was parading walkers around as a sideshow. One escaped and Carl killed it, reminding Carl of how dangerous everything is. So Carl takes out all of these walkers, which are now a possession and are worth money because there's not many walkers left in the world inside of the safe zone. So we don't know what outside of Alexandria, the Hilltop, the Kingdom, Oceanside, outside of the Walking Dead world we know, we don't know how safe the world is. But maybe there's other communities. So anyway, very different video from me. I hope you appreciate it, and Walking Dead's over. No more Walking Dead. It's going to be odd because, I mean, obviously we've got the TV show and we've got the spin-offs and we've got the movie, but I've read The Walking Dead from day one. I've bought multiple issues, figures, t-shirts, props, convention tickets. I've paid a lot of money to get my photo taken with Ryan Hurst, who plays Beta, not just because of The Walking Dead, but because of my love of Sons of Anarchy. So Robert Kirkman and The Walking Dead team, whether it's TV or comic books, thank you very much. Let's just hope the TV show, when it does end, goes out as well as the comic books did. Please leave your thoughts, comments below. I know a lot of people are really annoyed that it's ended the way it did, and there were false covers for the next 2 issues released, and you could pre-order. Obviously that's not happening because they've done an issue that was almost 2 issues in length. So, but please feel free to discuss, comment below, and I'm your bearded geek. Thanks for watching. If you've managed to watch this for nearly 15 minutes, it's much appreciated. Maybe I can do some more reviews where I'm not doing figures and toys. Maybe I'll start doing some movies or comic reviews, book reviews, depending on whether I get any views or likes on this. So anyway, cheers guys. Thanks for tuning in.